Hi, science friends. We are going to wrap up our notes today and talk about some of the uses, but also some of the dangers of radiation. So, when we started this unit, one of the first things that I showed you was a picture of some strawberries. And we noted that the strawberries that had been irradiated looked much better. So, one of the major important uses of radiation is protecting food supplies. It allows food to stay fresher longer, and ultimately protects against food waste and insects and just a lot of bad things that can happen to the food supply. Producing power, so it's an alternative to coal and other forms of energy, so that's really important as we consume lots of energy and power in our homes. Some of us have been without at times this week, and so we see the increased importance and need for that. Radiation is useful in X-ray and CT imaging in medicine, also in nuclear medicine. Maybe you or someone you know has had some type of radioactive isotope done in. They'll use it to look at like kidney function or metabolic pathways. You'd drink some type of dye or take some type of pill, and they can look at it to, that's more of the radio tracers here. I apologize, I jumped around a little bit. But also nuclear medicine, targeting cells with targeted radiation. And then security, if you've ever flown or been in an airport, they use imaging. So radiation is really important in that. So there's a lot of things that radiation is used for. Now, effects of radiation. Radiation can be broken down into ionizing or non-ionizing radiation. So ionizing radiation are going to be your higher energy radiations. If you look at the scale here of waves, the ionizing radiations are the ones that are teeny, they're smaller. Those waves are a lot closer together. They have a higher frequency, and therefore they have more energy. These longer waves are going to be the non-ionizing energy, and so it does not ionize matter in the same way that the higher energy radiation does. And so what we mean by ionizing, meaning it removes electrons. Remember, an ion, we talked about ions before earlier in the year. This is an ion. It's got a +2 charge because it lost 2 electrons. This nitrogen is a nitrogen -3 ion because it gained 3 electrons. And so that's what we mean by ionizing radiation. So again, it's changing the structure of matter. And so sometimes that can cause damage. 2 different types of damage that can be caused by radiation. The first is somatic damage. That word soma means body. Okay? It can damage body tissues, body cells. Now, body cells are cells that are not passed off to organisms. Body cells, as you'll learn in biology, are any cells but your sperm cells and your egg cells, your reproductive cells. All of the other ones that are not sperm and egg or reproductive cells, those are called somatic cells. And so that damage is not passed on, but it does damage the organism itself. And so we see that in cancer, including cancers like leukemia, cataracts caused from UV damage. Those are types of somatic damage. Now, if it damages the sperm or the egg or the reproductive cells, then that is genetic damage that can be passed on to future offspring. And so it can lead to things like birth defects, developmental abnormalities, cognitive delay. The damage may not be seen in the organism that is receiving the radiation, but can be passed on to other organisms. So, for example, I'm going to jump on actually to the next slide. In the healthcare industry, nurses and anybody involved in, taking x-rays or whatever, wears some type of dosimeter, and that collects radiation that they're exposed to. They especially want to limit that for pregnant women. Not because it hurts the woman so much, but because it can have genetic damage that would be more damaging to the fetus. But anyway, dosimeters are used to collect data on exposure to radiation. A lot of times in the hospital, they'll have a certain special badge, and it collects that, and they can upload that into a computer. There's a site that they go to that can give a printout of how much radiation that an individual has been exposed to. Geiger counters, you may have seen these in movies, when they're trying to find a nuke or a bomb. It's, a little handheld device that beep, 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 or, has some kind of noise that it does. The closer you get to it, the more of that bad ionizing radiation that is available. And then it clicks, not really beeps, it kind of clicks. And then survey meters. Survey meters are going to be more specific because they tell you not just the type, the amount of radiation, but they're specific to how much it contains. So Geiger counters are very generic. They just click when there's radiation present. You don't know how much it is. You don't know what type it is. You just know it's there. Survey meters are going to be very specific into how much is present. And so those are some tools that we have to be able to detect radiation and try to keep us safe. So what we are going to be working on for the next few days is a project. And there is a rubric about this that I've posted in Google Classroom. And so basically what we are going to do is you're going to pretend that you're a member of the city planning board. And there is a company that is trying to come into your city to propose building a nuclear waste storage, processing, and disposal in that facility. Okay? So your job as a member of the city planning committee is to tell us about the pros and the cons of this facility. You're not specifically taking a side. You're just, they're going to give a vote on it at the next city council meeting, and so you are going to gather information to present to your colleagues about this. So as you do a little bit of research, here are some keywords that you can look at. So, you'll want to talk about positive things as far as like it can create jobs and it can give us a lot of energy, but then you might want to talk about some negative things like hazards of radioactive material and disposing of radioactive waste. So your job is to kind of present both pros and cons. You don't particularly have to take a side, okay? In fact, I'm asking that you don't take a side. So you will give this speech in class, or report, if you will, same thing. But you will kind of give this speech or report aloud in class. You can have your paper or your notes, but I want you to kind of start gathering some information and jotting down some ideas, maybe write your first paragraph or get some bullet points or talking points and what you want to do on that. Okay? So that is something for you to spend a little time working on today. And again, we will work on it more in class later this week. And I hope you all have a good day, and let me know if you have any questions.